Hello and welcome to the penultimate round of the 2021 Spanish Formula 4 Championship. And to Jerez and to the south of Spain, my name is Leo Gorman and we're getting close to the end, ladies and gentlemen. As we see in the south of Spain, not far from Seville and Jerez, this classic old school circuit opened in 1985. And it will be a challenge now for these drivers, these 24 drivers, as we come down to the final 6 races of this championship. And it is a championship which can be won today. If Delino Van Toff, who has scored another pole position, his 11th of the season, he now holds a 95-point advantage over the next man, Sebastian Ogard. And with only 6 races left, there is actually only 142 points on the table. If Van Toff wins today, Ogard needs to finish 7th or higher to keep the championship going for another race, that being tomorrow. But it is a pleasant day, so we're not expecting anything particularly strange or particularly changeable in terms of weather conditions. It is quite warm. We're in the late 20s. It is 28 to 29 degrees Celsius here with a track temperature of 38 degrees Celsius. Now, that could prove a little bit of a problem for drivers who are maybe using slightly worn tires for today's race. But in terms of conditions, we really are not going to see anything particularly changeable today at all. And you can see at the front of the grid there, on the left-hand side of the screen, there is under the umbrella, and it must actually be quite warm down there on the grid, is Delino Van Toff, the MP Motorsport driver. This is his first season in Formula 4, and he has got off to an absolutely stellar start after winning many races. And as I said, 11 poles already in the red MP Motorsport machine with the black nose box and white number board. And I'll leave you to listen to Laura for a moment as she introduces from the grid.
Como tú bien introducías, tendremos esta tarde tan solo un aperitivo con esa primera carrera de la Fórmula 4 para pasar mañana a esas 6 carreras en las que viviremos numerosas carreras en los diversos campeonatos. ¿Qué os comento? Pues lo de siempre, el parte meteorológico que tan importante es. Hace bastante viento, pero tenemos unos 27 grados en el ambiente, o sea que contando con que son las 4 de la tarde, la pista estará bastante caliente. Y aquí veis, como tú bien introducías, Cristian, al que se proclamará probablemente campeón este fin de semana. No sabemos si será hoy, la verdad es que lo tiene complicado, porque el rival Ogard es bastante duro. Pero estaremos muy atentos porque efectivamente está claro que Delano tiene todas las de ganar este campeonato, así que vamos a ver qué pasa en esta primera carrera, en la que, por cierto, tenemos muy bien situados también a los españoles, así que te lo dejo todo a ti para que nos cuentes todo lo que pasa en esta carrera y en un ratito os veo con el ganador.
As Laura talking about Delano Van Toff there, pole ban, another pole position, and the only driver who made it into the 1:42 for this morning's, well, actually later this morning's qualifying session. He has also secured pole position for race 2. Of course, no bonus points for race 2. That is the shorter race. That is with that grid set on the second fastest times in the session. What I can tell you is there were plenty of times deleted through track limits. 24 times were deleted through track limits for 14 drivers. I think particularly it was Miron Pinkasov who had 4 times taken off of his lap chart. So that is something to watch out for, because we may see penalties applied should that become a significant issue in this race. We saw that several times at the last round and several weeks ago. And it was something that actually changed the results of the race on several occasions. Indeed, we saw Daniel Mazzio, who initially won race 2 last time out, actually lost that race win. He received a 2-second penalty, which gave Van Toff another victory. So it's not inconceivable we will see some post-race penalties today, should those infractions continue. But this is a learning championship. It is Formula 4 for pretty much everyone on this grid. This is the entry level to car racing. And this is very much an entry race for Lucas Malek, the DriveX racer. This is his first ever weekend in car racing, his first weekend in Formula 4. Previously a karter and did some testing. He starts from 22nd on the grid, and I'll get to the grid in a moment as the field has cleared of mechanics. We're about to go on the dummy lap as the final signs. The marshal clearing the grid now. And we will see the green light comes on, and the field does get away with Vantoff leading Ryabov away in the formation lap. So we'll go through the grid for you now. It is Lola Lovenfoss starting from last position with a 1:45.0 in the DriveX entry. Alejandro Garcia for Campos, he lines up 23rd. Lucas Malik, as I mentioned, for DriveX 22nd, just behind Miram Pinkasov, who's 21st. Emily De Hughes is 20th on the grid, just behind Brandon Lee Oxley, 19th in his DriveX entry. 18th on the grid at 1:43.953 is Alexander Partashev for Campos, with Jorge Campos in the Tio Martin Motorsport machine just ahead in 17th place. Then we have an all MP Motorsport 8th row of the grid with Gilles Molino starting 15th and Noah Dengball 15th. Norma Bramczyk starts 14th in the DriveX entry, just behind Philip Jenik in the Tio Martin Motorsport. Jenik got a very, very good result last time out in Borderland Aragon. Then 12th is George Kelstrup for MP Motorsport, just behind Manuel Espirito Santo in the other MP Motorsport machine. He starts 11th. Then it is Daniel Mazzi in the Formula de Campinos machine. He comes in 10th position, just behind Guillermo Oliveira in the DriveX entry. Maxim Arkanchelski is another DriveX entry. He is the highest starting DriveX entry. He's coming away from 8th on the grid. He did well in FP1. He'll be hoping to repeat that kind of form in this race. Suleiman Zanfari, a very good qualifying effort for him. He starts 7th in his MP Motorsport machine. Rick Cohn is 6th for the MP Motorsport team. It's a 1:43.318 for Cohn. Sebastian Ogarb, the final remaining championship challenger to Vantoff, starts 5th in the Campos entry. He was 2nd in FP2. He'll be hoping to make strides in this race. Enric Bornas in the Formula de Campinos car, he starts 4th. His season started very, very well, but it's tapered off a little bit. He's currently 5th in the standings. He'll be hoping for big results this weekend as he looks to the future. Pepe Marti in the Campos entry did very well. He scored P1 in FP2, was 3rd in FP1. He starts 3rd in this race. He'll also start 3rd in race 2. In the Campos entry, that's a 1:43.031. And then onto the front row of the grid, we have Vladislav Ryabov in the GRS, the sole GRS entry this weekend. He starts in the front row for race 2 as well. He's secured that position with 1:43.006, and on pole position, Delino Vantoff, an MP Motorsport car, a 1:42.948, P14 and P15, surprisingly enough, in the 2 practice sessions, possibly concentrating on race pace, and then just nailed pole position anyway. But very, very good effort from him as the drivers now line up on the grid. And as you see, the red car in pole position, that is Vantoff. Ryabov on the left-hand side of the grid there in the green car with the black engine cover. And then just behind on the left-hand side of your screen in 3rd place is Pepe Marti in a white car with a black nose box. Also look out, 5th on the grid in the other Campos entry in the white car with a black engine cover is Sebastian Ogarb. 4th in the orange machine is Enric Bordas. The field has lined up on the grid. We're about to get the green flag to go. As you see the marshal now entering the field of circuit just ahead of the medical car. He runs across the grid, and we are go here at Jerez, and it's a slow start by Vantoff. Took a while to get away, but Ryabov was equally slow away. So Vantoff in a moment keeps the lead, but Ryabov doing very, very, very well to try and find a way past Vantoff, doing better to defend. Bornas coming on the outside of Ryabov in turn 2. Does he maintain the position? He doesn't. He goes wide as Ryabov actually forces the issue. Marti back into 3rd place. After initially losing that position off the line, Vantoff had another sluggish start, and I think that is one of the MP Motorsport entries, or sorry, one of the DriveX entries. I'm going off the circuit and regaining, losing several positions. But meanwhile, Vanthof continues to lead. Ryabov in second place. Marty is in... No, sorry, that is actually Rick Cohn up to third place now, ahead of Bordas. Marty fifth, Ogard sixth. And several drivers getting out on the dirty side of the track onto the gravel, getting dirt in the tyres and losing traction, losing grip, losing positions. You're not going to make any gains by going out on the gravel. It doesn't matter in any way, shape or form to Vanthof, who currently stretching his lead ahead of the GRS entry of Ryabov. The gap is already just over 1 second. It's coming now through the chicane on the back end of the circuit, the Senna chicane, before the long left-hand curve at Ferrari. And then a tight hairpin entry called Dukados. That brings them onto the start-finish straight. Vanthof leads. Ryabov has taken some time out of the race leader on those final few corners. But the fight really is behind. We see there's a gap there with Matsia in seventh place, and we have a driver off the circuit. Someone has slid off, and it is the number 77. That is Noah Dengball, has slid off into the gravel, going backwards. There's no way he's going to be able to get the car out of that, and he is absolutely buried. And we're going to see a replay now. He just saw the very, very end of it. No idea if he went off completely by himself or if he was helped off by another competitor. It is still green flag. We're still racing. The safety car has not come out. The marshals hopefully pretty confident of extracting. And we actually have, as another racer, someone has maybe lost several positions as well. As an issue, I think, for Maxim Markinchelski. And yes, we have safety car. The JCB has had to come onto the gravel to extract Dengball's car from the gravel. And we should see a cessation of hostilities in this race so far as they come through the chicane on the back end of the circuit. Still yellow flag for now. But I'd be surprised if they can actually manage to clear Dengball's car by the time they get back around. I doubt it very, very, very much. As they're coming through on the start-finish straight now. Ryabov is second place behind Vanthof, who continues to lead. And Rick Cohn third place ahead of Bordas. Ogard is fifth. Marty sixth. Mattia seventh. Zanfari is eighth. Oliveira is ninth. Kelstrup 10th. And it looks as though they have managed to maintain this race without the safety car. But it is double wave yellow flags on the earlier part of the circuit. As the drivers now come down into Dreisack turn 6, a very, very famous corner in the annals of motorsport. Of course, the corner where Jacques Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher had that infamous collision in 1997 to finish off that year's Formula 1 World Championship. Less controversy this time around, surely, with Vanthof having such a significant lead. But this race, this weekend, it's still early. Vanthof has lost a little bit of time to Ryabov, and I'm not entirely certain if that is Vanthof actually losing time or whether he's lifting off a little bit more through the yellow flag section. But he's not re-extended that gap. But at half a second, I think Vanthof is relatively comfortable having Ryabov just sit behind. And just wait. You need a very, very, very good run out of Dukados to actually try and make a move on Vanthof and Ryabov. This is the closest he's been so far in this race. He's really caught up, 0.2 of a second behind, claimed another few tenths off of Vanthof in the latter portion of that race. The yellow flag has been brought back in. We are racing full pelt around this circuit. Now, it'll be interesting to see if, without the safety car, if Vanthof can actually extend, or is this really a run for Ryabov to maybe go for the race lead and possibly the win? Ryabov with the fastest lap of the race so far, 1 minute 44.047. You can see they're already taking slightly different lines coming through. Turn 5 down into dry sag. We've seen this several times throughout the years. Van't has elected, he likes to maybe take a little bit more pace through the corner, but in doing so tends to take slightly wider lines as well, and let the kind of speed flow through, or other drivers tend to kind of slam on the brake as late as possible, bring the speed down, but try and get an earlier acceleration. Meanwhile, it seems to be working somewhat for Ryabov, who is 0.4, 0.5 of a second ahead of... Sorry, it's working well for Van't, 0.4, 0.5 a second ahead of Ryabov. Cohn, meanwhile, still in third place, under the watchful eye of Enric Bordas. And Bordas is close. He is maintaining the pressure, but not so much pressure that Cohn looks like he's going to lose that position anytime soon. As they come through the final corners now and again onto the start-finish straight. And they finish lap 4 of this race. And as you see, several drivers did go well off the circuit at several points during the opening lap. And at Jerez, it's at an old school track like Jerez, that's not going to bode you well. Van't continues to lead. The gap now 0.6 of a second. And as I mentioned, tyre strategy does come into play in the Spanish Formula 4 weekend. You do have limited number of dry tyres throughout the race weekend, so at some point you are going to have to run races with slightly used tyres. Whether you put a few laps on them in practice or qualifying, it will be absolutely necessary. And it really is a case of figuring out which race is best for you to do that and to manage that. We're looking now at the battle for third and fourth place. Rick Cohn under pressure from Enric Bordas. Very, very, very good start from Rick Cohn in the melee in the first couple of corners, and all the drivers going off the circuit. He's picked out 3 positions. He jumped Ogard, he jumped Bordas, he jumped Marti, going from 6th into 3rd position. He's fallen in a little bit behind Ryabov, but that's not completely unusual given his eyes are probably focused on the driver behind. But Bordas is not giving up the fight at all. Maintaining the challenge in the Formula de Campaños car. And for both drivers, this may not necessarily be the most satisfying of seasons, really. We saw Bordas take 2 wins earlier on in the year at Navarra, but it's not really come together in the time since. He's consistently recorded several 4th and 5th and a 6th position, but hasn't really challenged significantly for the lead since then. He did actually have a podium at Valencia last time out, but lost that through the track limits. But that was relatively distant 3rd place. For Rick Cohn, no race wins so far this season, but he has scored a few podiums. But like Bordas, has been chalking up some 4th, 5th, 6th, and an 8th here and there. As we see the start again. Very, very good start by Ogard to get down the inside of Marti. But as Rick Cohn, very, very good start, takes both Marti and Ogard through turn 1. I'm assuming he was a corner or so later, he picked off Bordas as well. 15 minutes plus 1 lap in this race left. Van't continues to lead. Ryabov is in 2nd place. Rick Cohn 3rd. He's dropped back a bit now, 2.3 seconds between 2nd and 3rd place. Van't doesn't have a significant lead by any stretch of the imagination, but he does look relatively comfortable. He's not looking in his mirrors, not anticipating an attack by Ryabov anytime soon. And he's just driving comfortably enough to maintain that lead without stretching his car, not stretching his tyres too much. And it must be said, Jerez is not the easiest circuit to overtake on, but it is one of those circuits that is technical enough that you can really pressurize the driver in front. You can really force them into making a mistake. So it's more about actually creating the error from the driver behind than necessarily getting in the draft and slipstreaming through to take a position. And clear to wonder now what Ryabov's long-term game in this race actually is. Bottas is once again closed right back up to Cohn. The gap is only 0.3 of a second. He's had a little bit of a breather from Ogard, who's nearly a second behind him. Marty in 6th. Well, right now we are watching the front two. It is just over half a second. Ryabov shadowing Vanthof at every way possible, but not finding a window through to take the lead, to take that position, to get onto the top step of the podium. Ryabov has had a podium this year. He came home second at Motorland Aragon and was actually running very, very, very well at Valencia a couple of weeks ago as well. As you see Marty step out to have a look at Ogard. And unfortunately, Ryabov had I think it was in race 1, had a few issues, a few errors, and cost himself a very, very, very good potential podium and ended up actually finishing low down. Yes, it was race 1. He ended up finishing 21st position. And what looked like a really positive potential weekend for the GRS entry ended up with just a solitary 6th place to their name. Ryabov is 10th in the points at the moment, and he will be very much looking to make moves this weekend. He's relatively close in points to Kelstrup. He's 4 points behind Dengball and Kelstrup, and only 10 behind Arkachelski. And for that matter, he's only 23 points behind Rick Cohen. So he is looking for the potential top 6 in this championship, as we see Bottas now really beginning to put the pressure on Rick Cohen. We're 8 laps into this race. And the gap just less than 1/10 of a second as they came around the back end of the circuit. Now is the time for Bottas to press. Now is the time for him to challenge, as he has that gap to Ogard behind. But does Bottas have enough to really make the way through? Oliveira, by the way, seems to be having issues. And he has actually dropped all the way down the order. We'll find out about that in a few moments' time. But the question now, meanwhile, is it's Vanthof leading. Ryabov just a second behind, but it's Cohn under very, very, very big pressure from Bottas. And Bottas does put his nose out into turn 1, but he's not close enough. It's not enough. And they're still very much managing the gap is Cohn, but only just. Bottas too is probably slightly concerned, looking in his mirrors. He's got Ogard and Marty right behind him. It'll be interesting to see what kind of game Campos are actually playing in this race. Of course, that Marty is Ogard's teammate. It doesn't seem to matter because Marty is definitely going for P5 as someone is off on the side of the circuit. There's a real challenge now for that 5th place. And Marty really pushing very hard to try and find a way through. And as I mentioned earlier on, Oliveira falling down the order. I do believe that was actually the car on the side of the circle we saw a few moments ago. But we're really seeing a tight battle now for 3rd and 4th between Cohn and Bottas. Actually, interestingly enough, it's Ogard and Marty fighting over 5th and 6th. It's actually given Bottas a little bit of clean air. The gap between them a second is Ogard really concentrating on trying keeping his teammate behind. Well, I was about to ask the question if there is maybe a less of a competition between the two Campos drivers as Ogard goes for the title. The answer to that is clearly no. And Bordas tracking Cone very, very, very closely as we come through the tight, twisty section of the circuit. And this was Bordas having a go, trying to go around the outside of Drysack. You've got to be very, 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 very brave, very committed. To make that move. And you have to have quite a bit of compliance too from the driver you're overtaking. And we're now looking at Ogard in 5th place, trying to defend from Pepe Marti in 6th place. His teammate, that is 7th place behind them in the orange machine, is Daniel Matzia. And Ogard definitely driving like a racer who's defending hard. He's taking alternative lines. You can see him occasionally looking in his mirrors, trying to track exactly where everyone else is. And it's causing the gap between Bordas and Ogard to extend somewhat. It is now 1.4 seconds. Bordas, meanwhile, still tracking Rick Cohn. As we see in the picture, the gap there, 0.4 of a second. Van 't Hoff continues to lead this race. His gap is just under a second to Ryabov. See the leaders coming across the line now. Cohn there in 3rd, Bordas 4th, Ogard 5th. Ogard is stretched out slightly to Marti. Marti now under pressure from Matzia, the Formula de Campinos car, trying to make a move around the outside of turn 1, but will he make this work? Not quite. Very close there, front wing to rear tyre. Marti really defending hard, coming clean across the circuit. But Matzia is going to have another go around the outside. Let's see, did he make the move work? Not this time around. Marti had just enough to keep Matzia at bay. He continues to lead now, coming through the turn 3-4 section, then into 5 of Sito Pons. And it's Brandon Lee Oxley, I think, in the pits for a new front wing. And out of the car. Some damage there to the Drive X entry, and with just 6.5 minutes plus 1 lap left, they call it a day. And he walks straight to the back of the carriage, absolutely dejected and disgusted with how his race has ended today, and he'll need to come back afresh tomorrow for 2 races and second qualifying. Meanwhile, back on circuit. Van 't Hoff leads. The gap to Ryabov is 0.6 of a second. Then you got Rick Cohn in 3rd place. He is half a second gap to Bordas. And then a second behind Bordas in 5th place is Sebastian Ogard. Pepe Marti is 6th. Daniel Matzia is 7th. Zuliman Sanfari running in 8th place. 9th is George Kelstrup. And 10th in the final points paying position for the moment is Filip Jenik. But he is holding Noma Bramchik and Manuel Espirito Santo at bay. So warning flag then for car number 26. That is Ryabov for track limits. Now you do need to be careful if he gets another, if he gets pinged for that one more time, he may need to take a time penalty at the end of this race. Now generally we've seen the time penalties for track limits around 2 to 3 seconds. And Ryabov does have a 3.7 second gap to Rick Cohn. But if he does take the lead and gets pinged for track limits, he may have to build a gap of 2 to 3 to 4 seconds to make sure he keeps that win over Van 't Hoff. But that is very much an if, because Van 't Hoff continues to lead. The gap is just less than half a second. As we come into the closing stages of this race, less than 5 minutes plus 1 lap remaining. Gap between the leading two, 0.7 of a second. And it doesn't look at this point as if Ryabov is making absolute gains on Van't. The gap is always thereabouts, but when he does close up, Van't just seems to drag the gap out a little bit more. And we saw a message on screen there a few moments ago with the fastest laps in this race. Dylan Van't does have the fastest lap, and that is critical for Sebastian Ogier. Van't, if he takes 25 points for the win, plus the bonus point for fastest lap, gives him 26 points for this race. And Ogier in 5th place will almost certainly, he won't win the championship today. Van't won't win the championship today if it stays as it is now. But it will be very, very, very close. And what is also very, very close is Enric Bornas. He's right up to the back of Rick Cohn once again. The battle for 3rd and 4th position. Ogier is there in 5th place. He's pulled away from Marty just a little bit, but you still see Marty there. Ogier really needs to charge past and take these two drivers as we come through turn 5 and streak down the hill towards the tight right-hander at Dreisack. Bornas getting right under the rear wing of Rick Cohn, but it's not enough. The gap is 0.2 of a second. He needs to be closer. He needs to pressurize harder. He needs to force Rick Cohn into a mistake if he is to take that 3rd place. With Bornas right now, it doesn't look as if that mistake is coming. Rick Cohn playing a very, very canny race, driving very solidly, no mistakes, no errors, brilliant start, taking both Campos Racing drivers in the opening corner and taking Bornas a turn later. As mentioned earlier on, Rick Cohn has taken 2 3rd places so far this season. Will this be his 3rd? Bornas at one point really pressuring Cohn hard, is now got Sebastian Ogier closing up to him very, very, very closely. The gap between the leading two has stretched out somewhat to 1.3 seconds. And we really must acknowledge that this is quite a difficult circuit to overtake on. As I mentioned, you really have to pressurize the driver in front, but it is also one of those circuits probably slightly better suited to motorbike racing. You really lose an awful lot of your aerodynamic forces in a twisty circuit like this. And this is where we will continue to see drivers press hard. And this is where we will continue to see drivers maybe begin to lose grip from the tires as the race edges. Those drivers who are beginning to struggle for grip, who are beginning to struggle for traction behind others, are really scrubbing their front tires significantly. Marty, he's not close enough, he's nowhere near close enough to even think of making a move on Sebastian Ogier, his teammate, but he's going to stick his nose out and have a look anyway. And that's where it comes in, this level of distraction. It's all about trying to make the driver in front lose their attention for a moment. It's all about trying to make them lose concentration, lose focus on what they should be doing. There's a time penalty from race control saying 2 seconds time penalty for track limits. I don't really know if that's actually for anyone in particular or if that's just a general rule, but I'm guessing it is the general rule. But I have no penalties coming up on my screen, as it were. Van't now stretched out a lead of 1.8 seconds from Ryabov. Unless something significant happens in the next 2 laps, and really this is the penultimate lap of this race. This will be another race win for the Dutch youngster. Van't has won 6 times already this season. As we see Marty really having a go at Ogier now. Ogier defending very hard, but getting offline. And he's still offline. Marty has the inside of the corner as they come through the exit of 4 down towards 5. Ogier taking the inside line, Marty on the outside, really trying to make the move work as they go side by side through turn 5 and onto the run down into Dreisack. Ogier more in the middle of the road as we see Marty on the outside. Will he try and keep this position? And Marty sticks his nose down the inside. And I think Ogier just maintains 5th position. But Marty really pushing hard to get past his teammate, sees an opportunity to get a top 5. Championship? What championship? Marty wants a top 5 position. And of course, Marty is third in the points standings at the moment. He is in a battle for third in the standings with Daniel Matzia. Matzia, of course, is just behind Marty. The gap between them in the points is 5. Ogard is well secure in second place in the standings. There's no doubt about that. I think it's Ogard is 44 points ahead of Marty in this championship standing, so there's no worries there. As Van't comes across the finish line to start his final lap of this race, and I doubt very much Marty cares too much about Ogard's championship desires at this point. He just wants to try and make a move past Ogard to maybe build a bigger gap to Matzia. Meanwhile, further down the order, Noah Bramczyk has got into the points. He's just taken Filip Jenik for 10th place. That is the last points paying position in this race here. Van't, meanwhile, he's built this gap to 2.6 seconds. He is driven absolutely impeccably in this race. And what was initially looked a little bit like a sluggish start, I think the fact that other drivers around him and behind him also had slightly sluggish starts helped to maintain that lead. And he's held it from Ryabov ever since. Ryabov, for his efforts, he's done very, very well in the Jerez entry. Second on the grid, has run second throughout this race and shadowed Van't for the most part. And looks to solidify his second podium position of the season. Rick Cohn, meanwhile, still holding a half-second gap in third place, ahead of Enric Bordas. But it's Van't coming through the center chicane. Hits the curb on the inside very hard and takes the inside of 12 to the final left-hand hairpin corner at Ducados, and bringing him onto the start-finish straight for race win number 7 of the 2021 Spanish Formula 4 Championship. Vladislav Ryabov does take second ahead of Rick Cohn. Rick Cohn has actually just been handed a time penalty. Now, I'm assuming that is for track limits, but has dropped Rick Cohn down into 6th place. Rick Cohn did take the checkered flag in 3rd position, but a penalty has dropped him behind Bordas, Ogard, Marty. So Rick Cohn comes home 6th. Daniel Matzia takes 7th. Zanfari has been classified in 8th place. Kalstrup takes 9th. Espirito Santo 10th. Bramczyk and Jenik have been put down into 11th and 12th place. Campos comes home 13th. Partishev 14th. Garcia is 15th. Pingasov is 16th. Dengball down in 17th. Jean Molina takes 18th. And in his first race, Malek takes 19th place, while Lola Lovenfoss comes home 20th. There were 4 non-finishers. Brandon Lee Oxley retired in the pits several laps ago. Guilherme Oliveira retired on the track just before the halfway point. Noah Dengball didn't make it past lap number 2. Well, Maxim Arkachelski didn't manage any laps at all. So that is a significant win for Delano Van't, his 7th win of the season. And just will, as we see the results coming on screen now, is confirmation. Van't winning from Ryabov. Bordas 3rd, Ogard 4th, Marty 5th. Rick Cohn, as I said, crossed the line in 3rd, received a penalty, dropped him down to 6th. Daniel Matzia is 7th. Suleiman Zanfari 8th. George Kelstrup 9th. And Manuel Espirito Santo takes the final point in 10th position. That is a full score from this race for Delano Van't. He, of course, took pole position as well. Fastest lap, led every lap and won the race. It's 28 points to his total. And see the 4 drivers not classified there. Ogard in 5th place. In 4th place now, does keep his championship going for another day, but it really is hanging on by a thread. That gives Van't a total of 293 points. And so the gap now between Van 't Hoff and Ågaard is 109 points with 116 left. Nearly there, not quite, but Van 't Hoff will celebrate with his mechanics regardless. His 7th win of the season. And also the winning rookie for race 1. Rick Cohn there. We've seen the white and light blue overalls and the yellow and green helmet. Came home 3rd, his 3rd podium of the season. And some Hancock tires that I think it's fair to say that once Van 't Hoff got out in the lead, he didn't really have to work hugely hard. I think the pressure really was on Rybov for the most part. Although, not too bad shape, actually, his Hancock tyres. And Rick Cohn just behind in... Well, of course, Rick Cohn has pulled into the podium slots, probably not realising that he got a penalty, and they've swiftly put Boras's car in place instead. This is Boras's best result, actually, since his race win at Navarra. He won race 2 at Navarra, and that was back in May. That was the 30th of May that Boras last actually stood on the podium. And that was a long break for him. His 2nd season in Formula 4, and I think probably hoping for a little bit more, but he will celebrate that podium regardless. The drivers congregate, and we'll see Delano Van 't Hoff with Laura Martin in the grid. And we shall hear from the Dutch racer momentarily. And so, as I said, there but nearly not quite. It's 109 gap with 116 available, the championship leader, and soon really to be probably the champion with Laura Martin in the paddock.
Congratulations, Delano. Very good result and very good points for the championship. What do you think?
Well, I think it was a great race. We worked a lot on the starts beforehand because the starts were definitely a point to work on. But now that we got the starts good, I think the race was nice. I mean, P1 the whole way, nice and controlled, and trying to do it again in race 2.
What do you expect for tomorrow's races in which you would be champion?
Yes, it could be, but I'm not going to be excited too early, so we'll see how it goes tomorrow.
Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Almost sounds like it could be from Essex. Oh well. It's Delano Van 't Hoff mulling over his win. Must be very used to... Is that an ice cream truck? That'd be brilliant. Delano Van 't Hoff mulling over his race win, his 7th of the season. Now we see the highlights from this race. It was a sluggish start from Van 't Hoff, but Rybov was slow away and probably boxed into Campos Racing Machines too, allowing Rick Cohn to jump from 6th into 4th. Sorry, Bordas was initially 3rd, but Rick Cohn got by him as well. And Bordas was going side by side with Rybov for a moment, and probably what allowed Cohn through into 3rd place, and several drivers on that opening lap getting out wide, getting onto the gravel, getting onto the dirt, and made them lose time. But for Noah Dengball, he lost the race completely. He went flying off the track on lap 2 and into the gravel. But for most of this race, it really was about Rick Cohn defending hard from the attack of Boras behind. And at one point, this really was the closest that Boras got to trying to go around the outside of Dreisack. Couldn't make it work. But you see just behind the 2 Campos Racing entries, that was Sebastian Ågaard under pressure from Marty. Marty, too, faced plenty of pressure from Daniel Matzia, as the 2 drivers who were challenging each other for 3rd in the championship standings. But Cohn did not relent and held off Bordas right to the end. And we see this was a challenge between Gil Molina and Alejandro Garcia during the race. But once Marty broke away from Matzia, he challenged Ågaard hard for that position. Couldn't quite make it stick. And as the laps went on, Ågaard stretched his lead and pulled out a gap to Ryabov. In the end, it was 3.8 seconds as they came across the flag. Ryabov was second. Rick Cohn came home third, but took a time penalty and was dropped down to 6th place. So Enric Bordas took 3rd place, ahead of 4th position Sebastian Ågaard and Josep Martí 5th. And finishing out the points, Suleiman Sanfari in 7th, Daniel Matzia 8th in the end, George Kelstrup 9th, and Manuel Espirito Santo took the final points position in 10th place. As we see the drivers now come out onto the podium, Bordas 4th, a 3rd, taking his trophy for this podium. As I said, his first podium finish since May. Very, very delighted with that. Now the 2nd place man, Vladislav Ryabov, for the Jerez entry, coming home in 2nd place. Very good result for the Global Racing School. And the race winner, 17 years old Dutch driver Delano van Toff, taking the top step of the podium. We should see a representative from MP Motorsport as well to take the team's trophy as well. And now the Dutch national anthem. Celebrations for the 3 drivers on the podium. But props too for Ryabov. Very, very good drive to come home 2nd place, his 2nd podium of the season. And in this single car team such as Jerez, that is actually quite a difficult prospect, particularly when up against the likes of MP Motorsport, who have 9 entries this weekend. As Van Toff returning to the podium for the rookie celebrations. And for the ladies' trophy in this race, won by Emily de Heus. As she closes the gap to Lola Lovenfoss Now, De Hughes was 17th, Lolovos was 19th, but that means the gap between Lolovos and De Hughes is 301 points for Lolovos and 295 for De Hughes. And a fantastic event today. Brilliantly hosted once again by the Jerez circuit, the Circle Angel Nieto here in the south of Spain. We've maybe not seen a huge amount of action, but we saw lots of tense racing, lots of close racing. The drivers really pushing hard for every single position. The winner today was Delano Vanthof, his seventh of the season. And it brings him very, very, very close to winning the Spanish Formula 4 Championship of 2021. He eased today away from Ryabov to take that win.
Y tanto que atentos, Cristian. Mañana como... Y tanto que atentos, Cristian, te comentaba, porque
Bonas
mañana
coming home
esperamos
third.
bastante lluvia además, pero confiamos porque yo estoy cada vez que puedo mirando el tiempo y en principio será hacia mediodía, 1, 2 de la tarde, así que es posible que la mañana sea seca y que a medida que vaya transcurriendo el día vayamos viendo esas nubes y quizá acabemos mojándonos, pero bueno, ya estamos acostumbrados a esta temporada, ya nos ha caído mucho, así que por un poco más no va a pasar nada, desde luego le aportará mucha emoción a las carreras. Así que nada, nos despedimos desde el circuito de Jerez en esta jornada de sábado. Una carrera hoy, pero el menú completo viene mañana con esas 6 próximas carreras y veremos qué pasa. Muchas gracias.
And so for those joining us tomorrow, race 2, we'll get the green flag at 11:45. Spanish time, that's 10:45 in the UK. So join us at 10:30 UK or 11:30 in Europe for race 2. Race 3 will go green at 2:40 in Europe and 1:40 in the UK. So join us at 1:25 and 2:25 for the UK and Europe respectively for races 2 and 3 tomorrow. We shall see you then. And thank you for watching. My name's been Leo Gorman. This has been race 1 of Spanish Formula 4 at Jerez. We'll see you tomorrow.